All right, hello everyone. Welcome to just a graphing basics for our honors biology class. Remember, you are going to need to have these skills, not only for this class, because all of your graphs need to be in Excel for those lab reports or anytime you're turning something in, but also this is a life skill that will carry with you throughout the rest of your academic career and also probably your future job career as well. All right. And just as a disclaimer, I am going to walk you through how to basically produce graphs based on data tables. Some of the settings on my computer may look different from yours. Excel online versus on Mac versus on PC and Windows. It does look different, but it is called the same thing across the board. So you may need to play with yours to figure it out and like Google search if it is different from mine. I do want you to try and use these tools on your own though first. So let's say we're going to start with this data and your teacher or your boss or whoever gives you this data and wants you to produce a graph. Okay, so this is data representing cumulative sales and profit over an 8-month period. Okay, so you can see there is a row for year-to-date sales. That means that each month is included in the next month. It's ongoing. It's continuous data, right? So February, this number includes the number from January. Same with the profit. It's year to date. It is cumulative. It is growing and progressing throughout the months. So hopefully by seeing cumulative and year to date and that it's, again, continuous data, you know that this is going to be a line graph. So this is the data table. We're going to see the first step is figuring out what we want to graph and putting that and replicating that data in Excel. Okay, I jumped over to Excel. And let's just say you only wanted to graph sales. So I just copied over the data from that first row, year-to-date sales. Okay, that's the only thing we really are concerned about here. So first step is always recreating your data table with the data that you want to appear in your graph. Okay, after this point, it is very easy. You'll want to make sure you have this big white plus sign as your little cursor, and then you're gonna click and drag to include all of the data that you want to have graphed and plotted. Make sure you are not adding extra rows that will mess it up. It's an easy fix, but if you don't have the skills, it's just going to be easier to do it this way. Okay, so select your data, make sure it's all highlighted and that there's nothing empty. This is fine that it's empty, but no extra rows or columns besides that. Then you're going to go insert and you'll see all these options for charts. We want a line graph. And I would click the first one. We're pretty much going to only use the first one in this class. And you'll see it adds year-to-date sales and knows that's what we're looking at. And it plots our data points correctly. It gives us a trend line. And it also gives us even axes. So yeah, it's really that simple. You put the data in and then you highlight, insert graph. Now, there are a couple elements missing that you really do need for it to be a quality graph. One of those are axis titles. So on my computer, if you click on the graph, there's a plus, and it's really easy just to add in those axis titles that way. Sometimes you have to click, if you have a different format, you have to click the graph and go to chart design and figure it out through that way. Okay. So we know our x-axis should be month, and our y should be sales year to date, or you could write cumulative in dollars, which it didn't specify that in the data, but yeah, or in dollars. Okay. You will make it whatever you need it to be. You should include units on your axes when applicable. And sorry, I keep writing the wrong thing, dollars. Okay. Your title for most of ours It'll be based on like an experiment, so it should include independent and dependent variable, right? So the independent on the X, the dependent on the Y. So it needs this needs a little bit more. This only has our dependent. You would have to find a way to incorporate the independent variables in our title as well. Okay, so this is just a very simple line graph. Let's kind of rev this up a little bit. All right, so now let's say we want to include both sales and profit on our graph. All I've done is I've copied the data from that Word document, the data table we originally had, and we're going to do the same initial steps where you highlight and you insert a graph. Okay, and now you'll see there's two lines, one for sales, one for profit. A common mistake people make is they don't include necessarily all their labels. So let's say I accidentally highlighted both of these and I left off the year-to-date sales or profit. Then we start to see this Series 1, Series 2, which is just referencing the different lines. Now, you can either just change your chart area by going to Select Data. You see Chart Range, and you can expand it to include these by just re-highlighting, and it will reformat. Okay, or let's say I didn't do that, and it's Series 1, Series 2. Another easy way is you can go here under, again, we're under Select Data on Chart Design, edit, and give it a name. So I can change this to year-to-date sales, and it will update the legend. Okay, so the legend does need to be labeled, so that way it is really easy to identify what exactly the data points are referring to. Okay, and again, you'll need axis titles. You'll need a good title for the overall graph. So that should include both the independent and dependent variables. So, right, the months and the amount of money. So that's it pretty much for a line graph. Please practice on your own with that. I am going to move forward and kind of just give some tips about a bar graph. It's going to be pretty much the same thing, just like slightly different. So let's go ahead and look at some new data for a bar graph. Okay, so bar graph, here is some data. Hopefully you can see the difference between continuous and discontinuous data. This is an example of you're comparing directly days and flavors. So since it's a direct comparison, you're not wanting to see a progression with the numbers. So this would be an example of data we could use to make a bar graph. Okay. Again, one of the things we have to ask ourselves is what is our intention with graphing this? So you might just care about how many vanilla cones are sold each day, how many chocolate cones are sold each day, or strawberry, or you might want to look at all three at the same time. Okay, so let's just say vanilla cones. I want to see how many in a direct comparison day to day. I would copy over just that data. Again, I would highlight, insert, graph, and this time I want a bar graph. Click the very first one, and this gives you a nice, easy visual representation of those values, right? The most ice cream was sold Friday by far than the other days. You would add axis titles, and again, you would want to include the independent and dependent variable in the title. So vanilla cones sold over the course of a week or work week, or however you want to phrase it. Okay. So that's one way. But if we wanted to kind of show all ice cream sales comparing each day and all flavors, right, and comparing the different flavors sold each day, we could create a bar graph with multiple bars. Okay, so like a triple or a double bar graph. So I now just copied over all the same data. I'm going to highlight and I'm going to click the same graph, and it will automatically format that for me. So now you can see trends between the flavors and when they are most popular, and then when there are just more sales across the board in all the different days. And look, it automatically formats your legend because I was able to include those on the side. And I could add axis title and a normal title, and you would be good to go. So graphing in Excel, it is easier than doing it by hand. You just have to like practice going through the motions and doing the little setup steps that make it easier to have it spit it out for you. Okay. I'm going to show you one more thing It's if you put data in Excel funky, and a really easy fix for that. So I'm going to generate a little bit more data, and I will show you how we can fix that. So sometimes when you have your chart set up in Excel, and if you set it up slightly different than how the system's used to, and you press insert graph, it might plot the data really weird, or it may give you no data like what is showing right now on the graph. Okay, this is simply because it's got its X and Y confused in the data points itself. So if you're getting something really funky, one thing to try first before like starting over is going to chart design, and there's this option of switch row and column. So this is basically swapping where the axes are, what's on each axis. Okay, and then you get a nice graph. It basically fixes that problem. So again, that's just a little troubleshooting thing. If you're getting something, again, weird, please try this first, play around with it. And then if it's really messed up, just start over. Okay. I hope this was helpful, and I hope now that our graphing skills are going to improve. Yes, please make sure to follow these steps, especially having your data in Excel as a chart before you ask me for assistance when it comes to producing a graph. That will make it go a lot faster. Have a great rest of your day.